Welcome to another episode of our personal empowerment audio program, Finding Yourself in Paradise. Hi, I'm Michael Benner.
And I'm Steve Snyder, and our program today is about the three aspects of human beings, the mental, emotional, and physical aspects that make up what we call our triune nature.
All three parts are important. I think most people are aware of the Platonic model of mind, body, and soul, and sometimes emotions in that way are combined with the mental nature, like mental health. There's not a special division of emotional health. So many people think, well, you have a body and you have a mind, and many people believe in a spiritual nature of some sort. So there is that trinity, but we're going to separate out the emotional nature and talk about the mental, emotional, and physical, and how they relate to each other, and how, well, Steve, I don't think you can change any one of those things, our thoughts, our feelings, or our behavior, without the other two being affected.
Right, as this energy flows through us in these three ways, as it flows through the physical body in a functional way, we call it healing, and if it flows through the physical body in a dysfunctional way, we call it tension or pain. As this energy, the same energy, flows through the heart part of us, the emotional nature of us, we call it love or passion, and I suppose the opposite of that would be anxiety and fear. And then as it flows through the mental aspect of us, lots of names: intelligence, wisdom, creativity, intuition. Intelligence has many different aspects, but the absence of that, I guess we'd call confusion, the unfocused mind. So we have this body that when it is healing well, we love ourselves more and we're smarter. And then the more we increase our intelligence, the more we love ourselves and the better our body works. And it really doesn't matter which way you approach the equation. It's all the same energy that makes up this triune nature.
It's also interesting to look at the way we talk about ourselves. We can say, well, I just changed that behavior. I changed my diet, or I started an exercise program, or I changed my schedule, so now I have more time to read and enjoy life. So I can change my behavior. People often talk about changing their minds. Well, you used to think this. Yeah, well, I read some more, I gave it some thought, and I changed my mind. So 2 out of 3, we talk about changing. The funny thing to me, as we start this whole topic, is how rarely people talk about the idea, or even, it doesn't even occur to most people that they could change the way they feel. We're more likely to take responsibility for our behavior and even our thoughts than our feelings. We just tend to play victims to our emotional nature.
Yeah, I don't like asparagus. You make that choice when you're a little kid. It's like a feeling thing. It's not really a thought. It's just I don't like the taste of it. I feel this negative feeling every time I think of this asparagus stuff. And of course, I can change my feeling, right? I can all of a sudden be fed this vegetable. I didn't know what it was. It's magnificent. It tastes wonderful. And then somebody tells me it's asparagus, and I can't change. But nobody thinks much about that you can consciously, purposely change your feeling. I don't like this person. Well, maybe I've only been looking at them from this one aspect. Maybe if I get to know them better, I can change my feeling about this person. We do have the power to do that. We're usually sort of feeling stuck with our feelings, like I feel this and this is what I feel, and it's just I feel this way. We do have the power in certain states of mind to actually examine our feelings and change them. But when we're in stress, when we're just sort of operating on autopilot, you feel what you feel. There's not much you can do about it.
So we can affect all three. We can manage all three. We can change all three. If control is overstating it, how about we can influence all three?
Direct, conduct, orchestrate, choreograph,
rock and roll.
Lots of stuff we can do with it.
The physical, the mental, and even the emotional, and we'll talk more about that. Now, if that's the case, if there are these three parts, this triune nature in human beings, or this triangle, is one more important than the other? Is one sort of more all-encompassing than the other two? Is one the chairman of the board? That's the way I think of it. And yeah, it's got to be mind. So many philosophies, even religions, will say there is but one mind at work here. All is mind. This is core to a lot of Eastern philosophy, that mind is everything. God is will. Sometimes we talk about God's intention, or in the West we'll hear the Word of God, or a divine plan. These are all references to the mental nature of the divine. Is that projection? Well, leave it to you to decide. But clearly the mind has a very important role to play in working with and managing these other two parts, the emotional and physical nature.
Yeah, if we have a tendency to just go with the emotions before we use our mind, which people do, then the mind kind of takes a backseat and becomes a rationalizer, essentially. The emotions like blurt something out, and then the mind tries to logically figure out a way to justify having said that. But it's not in charge here, and that's when we say the stupid things, and that's when we get ourselves in lots of trouble. We definitely want to use emotion, but we want to have mind first. It's interesting, although mind is ultimately the director, you have to have the thought and agree with the thought that this is what I want to do before you empower it with emotion. You can't start with the emotion and then put a thought on it. It has to start with a direction. You have to start with a focus on something. So although mind is more important than emotions on some level, if you just have mind, if you're just thinking about doing it, you'll never do it. If there's no passion, if there's no emotion to drive you, it's like pointing the steering wheel in the right direction but never touching the gas pedal.
There's a lot of East and West in this. We talk about how Western technology has always led the world, and yet Eastern philosophy in many ways has led the world, and the two coming together, that's sort of a way of looking at the mental and emotional nature. When I talk about emotional intelligence to students or clients, sometimes they'll say, emotional intelligence? My God, Michael, my emotions make me less intelligent. The more emotional I am, the more, as you were just saying, Steve, the more my mind just falls into the background and ends up being this rationalizer. Like I start with a pre-existing feeling, and then the mind comes up with some reason why I meant to do that. Like the old Pee Wee Herman line, I meant to do that. Yeah, right, sure. What we're talking about is using the mind, get this now, clearly, using the mind to calm the emotional nature. This is just like muddy water becoming still, or choppy water becoming still, muddy water becoming clear. The emotional nature then becomes clear when it's calm and tranquil, and now the mind can discern and better understand the intelligence that is in the emotional nature, often called wisdom.
Yeah, it depends on the issue that you're dealing with, which mind has to take the lead. I mean, if you have a problem that you know what you want, you just really don't know how to get it, don't know what to do to accomplish what you need to accomplish to achieve that thing, well, that's where mind needs to take the lead. You have to figure it out. You have to study it. You have to do the scientific method. You have trial and error. You research, you learn, you make mistakes and learn from them. If you know what you want, but you don't know how to get it, you can use your mind to figure out the answer to this problem. But if the problem is a different kind of problem, if it's, I don't know what I want, I just don't have any idea what I want, well, you can't use logic to figure out the answer to a non-logical question like that. What do I want isn't a logical thing. If what I wanted was logical, everybody would want the exact same things. It's clearly an emotional thing. So you have to lead with the heart. If the question is, I don't know what I want, well, then I have to figure out what my heart desires. I have to figure out what my emotions are telling me, and then I can use my mind to figure out how to get it. But if I know what I want, I can start with my mind. If I don't know what I want, I must start with my heart.
We have to look at the back and forth. It's like a ping-pong game, I think, or a tennis game that most of us go through in normal consciousness when we're overstimulated, anxious, and stressed. You'll have a thought that impacts your emotional feelings, a thought that causes you to feel a certain way. But then those feelings rebound, they're bounced back, and they impact your thoughts. So your thought may change in response to that. Often your own mind will give you an argument based on the way you felt following the original thought. So it goes back and forth. Then it gets even more frenetic. So it's like thought, feeling, feeling, thought, feeling, thought, feeling, feeling, thought, feeling. And then a behavior could jump out of that, more a reaction or a reflex than anything reasoned out. So given that this is what tends to happen in normal consciousness, you can see the importance of taking a moment to be deliberate, to be mindful, to breathe, to relax. In the physical part, to feel a letting go, to make the body feel safe, to help the body understand that you're really safe and you're not in any danger. There's no saber-toothed tiger or caveman over there that's going to jump out of the jungle and eat you alive. And then you can begin to witness, to experience mindfully this exchange of the way thoughts impact feelings and vice versa.
Yeah, if you're in it, you can't experience it. You have to be able to disassociate from it. You have to be able to take that step back, that higher perspective on it, so that you can watch yourself have this discussion between your thoughts and feelings. I want the candy bar. Well, I know it's, too many calories, and I have had my quota for the day. I want a candy bar. Well, I'm trying to release excess power. I want a candy. If you're in that argument, you're going to have the candy bar 9 times out of 10, because you see, the subconscious mind is much more powerful than the conscious mind. I mean, the logic that I should never have a candy bar, if logic would win, we'd all weigh exactly the right amount. I mean, we'd all eat exactly the right amount of food. We'd all behave exactly. Clearly, when it comes to a battle between logic and emotions, almost always, if not that moment, the next moment, or the next moment, emotions are going to win. So if you can, as Michael was just alluding to, step back out of that by having that experience of mindfulness, feeling safe, that take that deep breath, disengage, sort of float above it all and watch that argument taking place. You can see or feel or just know or hear, however you do it, that there's part of you that's saying, well, it's really logical to not have the candy bar this time. And then the other part of you is going, yeah, but gosh, chocolate, and it tastes so good. And you can actually watch that happening. And from that place, you have a much better chance of influencing the decision to the one that really would be the right decision for you. If you stay in the battle between thoughts and emotions, emotions are going to win. If you can step back, then you have 2 against 1. Now the logic can finally take precedence.
There really is a set of feelings that remains when your emotional feelings are calm. These could be referred to as spiritual feelings. That would be a 4th element, except it's our tendency, Steve and I think a lot of other people in the field, to think of this 4th element, if you will, the spiritual nature or the soul, as encompassing the other 3, not being separate from.
It's peace of mind, body, and spirit. It's an overall sense of all of them working together as one.
I've read a couple of times some very interesting essays on the corollary between the 3 aspects of the human being that we're talking about today, mental, emotional, and physical, and the 4 elements that are found in ancient writings, East, West, and Middle East. And generally, the element of fire, esoteric fire, not real fire that burns in a fireplace, but esoteric fire, corresponds to the mental nature. The emotional nature tends to correspond with water. Again, to the ancients, one of the basic elements. The physical body, no surprise, would be the earth. Doesn't that make sense? You can even get a little image of the earth containing a lake with a flame above it. And it's sort of like from the bottom up, earth, water, fire, from the top down, fire, water, earth. That's the mental, emotional, and physical nature. But how do you get the 4th element in those 3? Well, the 4th element is air.
Which is above, around, beside, through, near, and with all the others.
It's in all things.
Yeah.
You can't have fire without air.
That's true.
Water is H2O. It's oxygen. It's got air in it. And, of course, the physical earth has air bound up in it also. Anybody who gardens knows about aerobic bacteria and anaerobic bacteria and the importance of oxygen or air in that element.
Well, and nitrogen as well. I mean, so many parts of air have to be in the land.
Indeed. All those different gases are air. And so in that way, air is everywhere. Air is the correspondence of love, not emotional love now, that would be the water, but spiritual love. That's where you capitalize the L.
Like
right?
Feeling part of the whole, the opposite of loneliness, the connectedness of it all.
Right, so that's a model that I work with, and frankly, that has served me a lot, to consider that there are 3 parts, basic parts in us, but for those of us who consider ourselves to be much more than mental, emotional, and physical, Well, that fourth element is really not a fourth element. It's that which encompasses and contains the lower three, everything below it, the lower correspondence.
Yeah, and that's corresponding to what we can call higher consciousness, or that state of mindfulness, awareness, that ability to step back and see yourself from the higher perspective. And it's a very powerful and simple tool to learn. It takes practice, of course, but a lot of what we're talking about when we're talking about finding yourself in paradise, that's sort of the entry, that's sort of the gateway into this higher consciousness. You know, you have to quiet everything down for you to be able to feel safe enough to get off guard. You know, that ego is always on guard, making sure everything, might not be, it's all that safe, let's make sure. But as soon as the ego can, relax and sit back, then that higher consciousness can emerge. And with that comes the ability to orchestrate, choreograph the thoughts, the feelings, and the behaviors. Now, the behaviors, when we say physical, we're not just talking about body. We're talking about action. We're talking about taking that thought, that feeling, and doing something with it physically, making that phone call. Well, yeah, you use your body to make the phone call, but really it's as much a mental and an emotional experience to make that phone call you've been waiting to make, needing to make. Taking action is where the body part comes in. And so that's ultimately, that's where it comes down to. It's got to be taking the right action, doing the proper thing. And how do you know what that is? Well, you can't know what that is just with your thoughts, and you can't know what that is just with your feelings. That's where a combination of thoughts and feelings have to come in, where the observation of thoughts and feelings interplay and working with each other to come up with a solution that works for the whole you. Because, again, if you just follow logic and you don't follow your heart at all, you'll take yourself where others think you should go, but not where you really need to go. And if you just follow your feelings and don't follow your mind at all, well, as Neil Young said, if you follow every dream, you might get lost.
Now, let's take this to another level, because I think if we look at this as Maslow might when he wrote his hierarchy of human needs, our needs begin with our basic physical needs.
Survival.
Survival, exactly. You need air, right? Can't live long without air. Then you need water. You can only go a couple of days without sufficient water. Then you need food, some kind of sustenance. You can go a lot longer without food than air or water, but still we have these basic survival needs. And so we talk about developing the physical self. Next would be going to school and developing yourself mentally. And most people, I'm sorry to say, live their entire lives and never really think very much about developing themselves emotionally. Again, they'd rather play victim to their feelings and pretend that we're an effect of feelings that others give to us, or they make us feel the way we feel. Of course, a little bit of study in psychology, a little bit of therapy, a couple of seminars, and you begin to understand quickly that your emotions are evoked from you, and they're very personal. The stimulus might be universal, right? Well, if that person talked to me that way, I'd feel pretty much the way you do, but not exactly as you would, you see. And how would you know anyway? So while we're all unique and should celebrate our diversity, this essence, I'll say, the essence of our subjectivity, of what's most intimate and personal, is found in the emotional nature. And most people develop that third, again, because you need a healthy body and a well-developed mind to learn to manage the emotional nature.
It does seem like, in terms of the growth of a human being, the third one that would be sort of mastered, if you will, that as we're growing taller, our bodies keep changing, and it's sort of awkward for a while, but at some point we sort of master the grace, the agility, the dexterity, the body. Some people much more than others, but we sort of get it to the point where we don't fall anymore. We can gracefully walk, we can move, we can grab things and know.
Or you say, I meant to do that.
Yeah, one of the two. So children really start to master their physical bodies and only begin to touch on the mental aspect. Certainly much of what we learn in terms of the knowledge we gain in our entire lives, we learn early in our lives. I mean, clearly by the time we're 5 or 6 years old, we've learned massive amounts of information compared to, any other 5 or 6 years that we're ever going to live again, But the mental process of developing, we say that somebody is wise, has developed their mental nature, has, rarely before they're in their late 20s or early 30s, if they're like an Einstein kind of person. And for mostly it's like in people in their 50s or 60s or 70s that we say they're smart, they've mastered their mental nature. But who do we look to have mastered their emotional nature? It's the Gandhi, the Dalai Lama, an occasional Mother Teresa, an occasional figure in history, but not like most people are going to likely ever do this. We don't think most people ever will master their emotional nature, as we figure a large percentage will master their mind and the greatest percentage will master their body.
So you might think of the order of personal development as physical and then mental and then hopefully emotional. That order and all three aspects are necessary if you're going to develop yourself spiritually, whatever that happens to mean to you. And yet, when we talk about the law of attraction, the law of cause and effect, you reap what you sow. What goes around comes around. You go where you look. You get what you expect for every action. There's an equal and opposite reaction.
In the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make.
I'm so glad you added that. The formula for creating form, thought forms, circumstances, even physical objects, the formula is mental, emotional, and then an expression out into the physical. So here we have the same three aspects of self, but we're looking again at a physical result that stems from the mental and then the emotional nature. Now, here's what most people do. This is called in some philosophies emotional polarization. Let's go back to that ping pong game of thought, feeling, feeling, thought, feeling, thought, feeling, 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 thought. And then a reaction, right? Which is coming mostly out of the emotional nature. And as Steve indicated, then there's the mental coming last as a rationalization. It's like reverse engineering. I meant to do that.
And that's a reaction as opposed to a response, which would be a chosen response. A reaction is like a knee-jerk, autopilot without thinking thing.
Right. That's why we call people jerks.
Yeah, right.
You're being reflexive. You're acting like a lizard. You're not using the mammalian brain to contemplate or consider. But if we use the skills that Steve and I promote every week in these premium audio programs, basic meditation, contemplation, progressive muscular relaxation, breathing skills are all relaxation skills. Then you can calm the emotional nature, still quiet the physical nature. The mind becomes lucid and clear, and we can choose the specific goal, outcome, Steve just called it a response, and then enforce it with the emotional nature, so that the mental nature is like an energy, but the emotion that's chosen in these calm states to reinforce it is the force behind the energy that creates the physical result. Now, if you remember your Ohm's law, this is found in Ohm's law. This is exactly the same thing that we see in electricity and electromagnetism, where amperage, you have a 15-amp circuit or a 30-amp circuit. How much energy can it handle? What's the volume of the electricity that the circuit can handle before you blow a fuse, right? That would correspond to the mental nature, the energy, the amperage, right? The emotional nature would correspond to the voltage, which is often called electromagnetic force. That's the pressure or the push behind, in this case, the thought, don't you see? So you get an idea, this is what I want to do. This is the response, or this is what I want to initiate altogether. And now, because you're practicing these mind science skills and these spiritual and personal development skills, you can choose to reinforce it, to amplify it and accelerate it with a particular passion, a positive enthusiasm and excitement that is much more likely then to manifest, number 3, in the physical, out into the world. which in electricity and Ohm's law, interestingly, is resistance. And our resistance to change, even our resistance to success, our fears of getting what we want and being able to do it is another topic for another show. So I don't want to overwork the allegory, but I think it's beautiful that mind scientists over the years from ancient times, without really knowing anything about the relationship of electricity to magnetism, came up with the same idea. Energy has to be empowered by a force. There has to be a force behind the energy. In other words, a good idea that you don't care about is just going to sit there. It's not going to go anywhere.
Or if you care with fear instead of with love. So if you have you're sitting in a job you don't like and you have this idea that pops in your head, I should start my own business. Well, if your initial response is, oh no, then you aren't going to start that business. If the initial response is, no big deal, you're not going to start a business. The only way you're going to start a business is if the initial response is, oh boy, oh yeah, wow, what a great idea. It's probably going to taper from there when, a lot of if it doesn't start big, it's probably not going to get pushed. And so it has to have that initial emotional power behind it. It has to have that love, that passion, that feeling of, I want this, this would be great for me. And with that, then we can start the process of, okay, what do I need to do and how do I feel about that? Lots of stuff can happen. But if with the initial thought, the reaction is either boredom, apathy, indifference, who cares, or a fear reaction, then those behaviors don't usually get manifest on a physical level. It's when there's a love reaction, or more like really a love response to the thought, that those things get, manifest in reality.
The reason so many teachers and religious and spiritual masters have used the garden as an allegory is exactly what Steve's saying. The unconscious mind, the subconscious mind, as we've come to call it, is, well, it doesn't have a backup will. It doesn't say, are you sure? Right? That would be the conscious mind questioning itself. Subconscious mind is like the ground.
If you're thinking it thinks that's what you want.
It will grow whatever falls upon it. Whether you cultivate it and decide, I want to grow these delicious vegetables and these wonderful fruits, or whether you just leave it sit and whatever the wind blows in or the birds drop in as they fly over will nevertheless be rooted.
Or if you go, I hope I don't get weeds and nettles. I hope I don't get weeds and nettles. Guess what?
And then I knew that was going to happen.
That's right.
I told, the cynics and the pessimists in our lives. So this is really a beautiful thing, this formula. I like to think of creating form. We live in a world of form. We are electrical or spiritual beings in physical form, separated bodies in a world of separated forms, and there's a formula for creating outcomes in that world. It's mental polarization, not the emotional polarization where a feeling leads to a behavior or an outcome, and then you decide afterwards how you brought that about or why you did it, or the rationalization we've discussed. Mental polarization is what we should work toward, where the clear, specific thought picks up the force of the emotional nature with enthusiasm and optimism and joy. And that then is much more like to express out into the world in the way we want it to express. Be mentally polarized. And now you have something to be mindful of. You can watch the ping pong game. You can watch yourself go back and forth. You can see how your emotional nature is coloring your thoughts and the way your thoughts are impacting the emotional nature. You can watch the ping pong game for a while, right? Let it happen. Let it unfold naturally. And then when you're ready, you, being, again, more than your mental nature, more than your emotional nature, clearly more than your physical nature, the you that is the higher self you find in paradise, your conscious awareness chooses the best thought, the ideal outcome, chooses the wonderful, joyous, and enthusiastic feelings to manifest the outcome. That's core mind science.
And it's so wonderful that you can improve all three of them by focusing on any one of them, you know? Improve on your body, that is, exercise more or more effectively, eat better, take better care of your body, and all of a sudden you'll start to get smarter and you'll love yourself more. Your mental clarity will increase and your peace of mind and sense of self-love will enhance. Focus on loving yourself more. Do mental exercises, emotional exercises where you feel the love you have for yourself, and all of a sudden you'll start to get smarter and you'll take better care of your body and you'll start to get physically healthier too. And of course, exercise your mind and the same things will happen. It doesn't really matter which way you approach this equation. So anyone who wants to become more in touch with their triune nature, begin in any one of the entry points. Begin with body, begin with mind, begin with feelings. It doesn't really matter. One will always lead you to the other will always lead you back. It's always going to be this circular, triangular connection between, no matter what you change about the way you feel, it's going to change the way you think, and it's going to change the way you behave. When you change your behavior, it's going to change the way you feel and think. It doesn't really matter which one you change. You change one, you change all three.
So this is obviously the superior way. The more elegant way is mental polarization. It just means you have to take responsibility to realize that you are the choices that you make, the ability to choose a response rather than play helpless victim, or to initiate, right? You could initiate a response or initiate a whole new behavior, but be the one who initiates. Isn't that called being an initiate? Except that the language is so mixed up, people say, oh no, somebody has to initiate you. Initiate you into what? Into being the initiate? You see? It's like the word self-conscious, which means to be aware of yourself, but has somehow evolved or devolved over the years to mean an excessive concern with what other people think about you. So it's sort of crazy. It's lost its meaning.
So to become more conscious, and not in the negative self-conscious way, but just more conscious, tune into the fact that your thoughts and your feelings and your behaviors all are interreactive, all interlinked, all connected in some way, and see if you can see how. Notice the next time that you have a thought, what you do with it. Notice the next time you feel something, what you think about it. Notice the next time you behave, what caused that. Was that a thought or a feeling that you were acting upon? The more conscious you become of the way the triune nature manifests itself in you, the more control you'll have over the results that you want to create in your life. And it's such a wonderful thing that all you have to do to be able to observe this triune nature is to get safe, to get out of stress, to get out of danger, to get out of that ego watching in every single direction for something bad to happen. And, we offer you the opportunity to do that every single week with the audio journey portion of this program, where we take you to a place we call paradise. Technically, of course, it's the alpha brainwave state. It's very simply a state of focused concentration and an amplified passion and interest. It's away from the divided attention, multitasking, stress mode that you spend a lot of time in. And it's a place that you find yourself in regularly in your life on the way to sleep, or when you nap, or when you space out, or, get really, really calm and quiet. But every single week we take you on a guided audio journey, and this one is into the nature of your triune being.
Before we actually do the audio journey, Steve, I'd like to talk a little bit about our retreat.
Oh, sure.
In February of next year, starting on the 13th of February, 2011, because this is going to be part of it. In a way, this is going to be the middle element. We're going to spend the first 2 days on this kind of stuff. The first day will be really going over the nature of fear and anxiety and stress, and how to get the jingle-jangle of the internet and media and just the overstimulus and the impact that it takes upon our body, our mind, and our emotional and spiritual natures. We'll spend a day on that, and then I think probably we'll talk a lot about the mind science as we further let go of the jingle-jangle of the city and driving on the freeway and all of that. And on the morning of the third day, you're going to be a very different person. You're going to hear birds singing that you never would have heard before. You're going to smell fragrances here in Maui that you had hints of as soon as you got to the airport, but now they're becoming so much richer and more impactful. You're going to awaken, as Henry David Thoreau says in his classic book, Walden, that I have to paraphrase him because he used a lot of negatives. but in the most positive way, the day only dawns upon those who are awake. I think Thoreau said the day does not dawn for those who are not awake. Right. But let's take those double negatives out. I mean, that's a rich and beautiful concept. So on the morning of the third day, you're going to awaken to a whole new experience of yourself, having been exposed in the 2 previous days, as I've just described, to the nature of fear, anxiety, and stress, and also these mind science concepts. This is not just a yoga retreat where you get to hang out. There's going to be a lot of instruction, a lot of seminars, a lot of dyads, a lot of free time too, but you'll use that free time to wake up. And then days 3, 4, and 5, mindfulness. And this is again where you will find yourself in paradise. An elevated perspective where you'll be able to stand above, as we've just described, not only your physical, but also your mental and emotional nature. And from that elevated perspective, be the awareness that chooses the thought, that savors the feeling, and that acts without hesitation in an enlightened fashion. So that's just a little overview of how today's program might fit in for those of you who are thinking about coming out in February. And I would say that in the next few days, we're going to finish up the website. We've got a bare bones website up there now. But by the time you hear this program, I think it'll probably be peaked and tweaked, and the shopping cart will be there so you can put your deposit down, which I think is a pretty good idea. We're limiting this to 24 people. So you're going to want to get your reservation in. Give that a thought. You can go to our website, focusedpassion.com, or our sister site, theagelesswisdom.com, and you'll see a bright, colorful button that'll take you right to that web page. So I'd say by the time you hear this program, it'll all be up there, and you can make your reservation.
Yeah, you can make some memories ahead of time. You know, you said in a show earlier that frequently you come back from a vacation or a trip and you think, wow, that was an experience I'm going to remember for the rest of my life because this time you can go into it knowing that's going to be the case. You can know that this is going to be a life-changing experience. It does take a few days, and not a few days of your normal vacation, like being taxied from one city to another, or you know, like not. It takes a few days of intentionally releasing thoughts, feelings, negativity, and intentionally cleansing the mind, the spirit, so that you get to this neutral place where you're feeling safe and ready now to suck it up, to just ingest beauty, to ingest safe feelings, to ingest the whole essence of this, the way it smells, the way it looks, the way it sounds, the way it feels, so that you have that, so you can anchor that. And that's really the core of what this experience is about. So you can anchor the feeling of my body and my mind and my emotions. I feel safe and I feel wonderful and I feel I'm in paradise, and I can have this feeling on demand for the rest of my life.
Yeah, nice pun. You'll be able to take it back to the mainland. And wherever you live, you know, it could be in a little town out in Nebraska or Iowa someplace, or it could be in the center of a giant metropolitan area. Heaven is in your mind. The higher self is in there, you see. Again, not the mental nature so much, but that comprehensive spiritual nature, the air that is in the fire and the water and the earth. That's the higher self. That's love capitalized, not emotional love, but spiritual love. It's consciousness. Do you understand? It's your awareness of the thought that makes you a conscious sentient being. That's your identity. You won't always think the way you think. You won't always feel the way you feel. You won't always behave the way you behave. Consciousness is the true identity. And this is the next phase of human evolution. Outside of any really spiritual or religious tradition, people are going to begin to learn not only emotional intelligence, but spiritual awareness, to be that higher self, that better nature. You've had glimpses of yourself being very kind, being very compassionate, being very generous, being very patient. But we've all had experiences where we're not any of those things. So what's the deal? A religious person would talk about salvation or resurrection or the alchemist's transmutation. Scientists would talk about evolution and unfoldment. Doesn't matter to me what term you use for that or how you particularly frame it. Just know that there's always more. There's always more. But you have to focus your attention and your desire on that. You need to aspire to honor the longing to be who you really are, who you really can be. And having said that, why don't you close your eyes, take a couple of slow, deep breaths, and begin to relax.
So we can put it all together, so we can have them all in balance, and all three aspects of our triune nature can come together, because, emotions without thoughts can be very painful to others, and purely being logical without any emotions, without compassion or empathy, can be very painful as well. Beginning in the body, feel a sense of inner peace, relaxation, and tension release. And as the muscles relax and all unwind, it has a profound influence as well on your mind, and your thoughts become clear, and your thoughts become sharp and cogent and focused, and you become bright. And as that happens, it affects the way you feel, as you might expect it might. And you find yourself feeling calm and quiet, experiencing peace of mind, serenity, equanimity, and tranquility is what you find. As your body relaxes, your mind gets clear, and your emotions replace with love all your fear.
Often it helps to imagine yourself, that is in your mind's eye, however it occurs to you, in a beautiful paradise, like Hawaii, or some other place that you've visited, maybe a special garden, your own secret garden. Doesn't have to be a wilderness area, but should be a place in nature where you can imagine yourself seated upon the earth and feeling supported by the earth, where you can consider that this is how it feels to have nothing more important to do than just sit here and be aware of yourself, as if time stands still and is really unimportant. You experience the beauty of this day. The sunshine feels warm upon your skin, or if you're in the shade or a cool forested place, you feel that feeling as well. You smell the fragrances. You hear the birds. Listen. See, the feeling that you made that up is exactly the right feeling. Create a paradise, and the subconscious goes, oh boy, this is real. It's real enough. I'm actually in a beautiful, safe place. Nature doesn't lie to me. She is not a trickster. I left all that in the city. Come to paradise to find your true self.
And as your body continues to relax and your thoughts get ever more clear and your heart is filled with love and now devoid of all the fear, you become mindful. You become aware of what's happening in there. And you observe your thoughts and feelings and choose behaviors that fit. Because it all comes together. It all works in harmony when you relax all of it. Release the fear, and it becomes clear how the triune nature does appear as three aspects that make a whole and lead you into spirit and soul. Relax, feel clear, Release the fear. Mind cogent and bright. In this place inside called paradise, the three come together, and it always feels right.
So allow yourself to be aware. Let it just bubble up into your consciousness. A goal or a solution, a result or desired outcome in your life. I know there's lots of them. Just wait for one to sort of stand above the rest and demand your attention. And hold that gently in your mind. See, you don't have to grip it or squeeze it as if it's going to try to run away. You hold it gently as you might a fragile object in the palm of your hand. And allow your mind to see clearly this particular goal or solution, this result. And then allow your emotional nature to become excited about it, enthusiastic, even joyful, at the possibility and indeed the promise. Or even what most people call failure is to an aware person an opportunity to learn, to modify their behavior, and to become better and better, so that all things work together for good. And then allow that mental energy, reinforced by the emotional passion, to be expressed in your mind's eye as a behavior, as an outcome, as a circumstance, a situation or a relationship, even a physical thing. And allow yourself, again, to experience in every cell in your body, without any thought of what it would take to actually get here, just what if? What if? Wouldn't that be wonderful? And luxuriate in that feeling, in that thought, in that desired outcome.
So imagine, how does it feel in your body to have achieved this thing that you set out to create? I mean, feel it. Pretend to feel it in your body and make it feel really great. And then how does it feel emotionally? And what are the thoughts that you create? Make it real in what you think and feel. And that's how you behave. Make it real in your mind's eye, in your mind's body, in your mind's thoughts, in your mind's feelings. Create it. Imagine it. Program it. Make it. Bring it all together. The body, the mind, the heart. Bring it all together. And from that place, start with a huge advantage. It's like you're way ahead by putting it all together. Instead, put it all together. Your heart, your body, and your head.
Finish with a letting go feeling, as if letting go of a helium balloon and watching it float away to go wherever it needs to go to manifest in the physical world. Or letting go as in a seed that you plant in the earth and you pack the dirt down gently and sprinkle it with your watering can, but now your job is over. You've turned it over to a higher power, a power so natural we call it nature. And you imagine standing up now and dusting yourself off, turning and walking away, knowing there's nothing else you need to do. But prepare for this certain conclusion. And say to yourself, it is done. Take a nice big breath now. Inhale fully. Hold for just a moment as you peak. As you exhale, feel that wonderful letting go feeling again, and open your eyes now, wide awake, alert, rested, back in the room, feeling better than before.
Yes, and know that it is in your nature to behave effectively in your triune nature. That is, to let your mind and your heart and your body all work together in harmony. It's when one fights another that we get in trouble. That's where sickness comes from. That's where mental disease comes from. That's where emotional pain and suffering comes from. It's not working in harmony with yourself. If you follow your head and don't listen to your heart, it's going to cause you pain. If you follow your heart and don't listen to your head, it's going to cause you pain. And if you just impulsively behave and do things without thinking and feeling, that's going to cause you pain as well. Life is most elegantly manifested when mind, body, and heart work in harmony.
Finally, I want to thank, on behalf of Steve, but mostly from me, everybody who sent us good wishes during the health challenge that I've been through in the last couple of weeks. The love, the positive thoughts, the meditative and prayer support was palpable. I could feel it. And I know it makes a difference, and I know you'll benefit from it as well, because that's just the way the law of love in the universe works. So I wanted to express a big mahalo and all of my gratitude for, even if it's only your patience, like, hey, where were the podcasts? I thought we were supposed to get one of these every week. You will be. And we really want to thank you for that. And as always, be gentle, love life, and take care of each other. For Steve Snyder, this is Michael Benner. Aloha from Maui.